Welcome to GovTech Guidance, your resource for everything you could want to know about the role of technology in government. Today we're talking all about procurement contracts. So representing the Synnex GovSolve team, we have Mike Gambrell, SLED Vertical Alliance Manager, and Jamie Grimm, Manager of Synnex Financial Services. And then representing RCN Technologies, we have Reed Perryman, our Director of Public Sector Sales, and then myself, the Content Marketing Specialist. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Glad to be with you, Mark.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm
Doing
excited.
great, Mark. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So we'll get you. There you go. You should be here in presenter mode now, Jamie.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And everybody, it is wonderful to be here. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to learn a little bit about how RCN has positioned themselves as one of the top tier value-added resellers that Synnex has partnered with. We are very, very happy to be here and to present our solutions portfolio to you. I am not going to bombard you with a bunch of PowerPoint slides. Rather, I'd like to speak with you for a moment and then share my screen. And I'm going to show you the Synnex GovSolve website, where you can find a lot of the details and resources around these contract vehicles yourself. So I'm not going to get too deep into the reads here, so we don't want to bring too much to the table so you can't absorb any of it. So rather, I would like to show you where the resources are, what contracts are available to you as end user officers, and so you know how you can leverage RCN and Synnex solutions together to make us the destination for you and any government needs that you may have. So just give me a moment here and let me get my screen set up. This is a very simple website to find. All you have to do is go to the browser of your choosing and type in Synnex and then GovSolve, or GovSolve and Contracts. Or if there's like GSA, if GSA is a particular contract that you want to look up, you can also look up that name and then Synnex at the end. So at this time, I'm going to search GovSolve. It's the first link that pops up. You're going to want to scroll down to the big blue button that says Government Contracts. And here you are going to have a one-stop shop to all of the contract vehicles that are available through RCN by Synnex. Synnex has positioned themselves as an IT distributor to make sure that we sit. Oh, my screen is not being shared. Hold on a minute. Let me make sure that's. All right. How about that?
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. So previous to this is our landing page. So if you get to this page, just like I said earlier, look for the big blue button that says Government Contracts. And this is, like I said, your one-stop shop. So this is where you can see all of the contract vehicles that Synnex manages. So RCN basically works as a reseller and a dealer on our behalf, and is able to leverage any of these contract vehicles to make procurement for you easier. Our GSA contract vehicle, I'm going to skim over this one really quick, is a very robust federally authorized contract that is also good for any SLED opportunities on the state level as well. Our entire contract can be viewed here, including our complete line card that will show you all of the different solution vendors that are included with this particular contract vehicle. And if you want to get into all of the details, we have all 1 million parts listed on our price files. So you can dig into each of these files and see what type of contract pricing you as an end user are eligible for. All contract vehicles are going to give you a discount from MSRP allowing you to bypass the regular bid process, which makes procurement much simpler. So we can get the product in your hands twice as quickly going through a contract vehicle. GSA is our only federally approved contract, but we also have a whole host of SLED-focused contracts as well. They even pare down into contracts as specific as Texas DIR, and RCN is a participating dealer on some of our Texas DIR contracts as well. So we have positioned ourselves to make sure that we have the full solution and a full breadth of contracts to make sure that we can meet any needs that you may have. And I am always happy to dig into any details of any of these contract vehicles, and am happy to know that RCN is a committed partner with us in this endeavor. At this time, I'm going to pass it back.
Yeah, that seems like a great resource. So that was just Synnex GovSolve, correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm going to put that link in the chat feature to you guys.
Yes, definitely. So with that being said, first question is going to go to Jamie. Why are contracts trending, and what are some of the keys to success in today's state/local markets?
Absolutely great question. So contracts are very popular because they make the procurement process much simpler for pretty much all parties included. RCN as a VAR, a value-added reseller, and also our end-user agencies. The typical procurement process for an end user, you've got to put a bid out there. You've got to wait for a certain number of responses to come back based on that criteria. Then you have to go through all of those responses and determine which pricing looks relevant to you. And then you've got to contest it. And after all of that is done and said, we may be 180 plus days past our original request date. Using a contract vehicle allows us to bypass that whole process, and time is money. So if we're able to get the product in your hands quicker, then we're all going to be a lot happier, a lot faster. So that is one of the biggest benefits of using a contract vehicle in this particular situation.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, Mike or Reed, do you guys have anything to add to that?
I would just add on to that, from the number of times that I've positioned a contract with my end users, especially DIR in the state of Texas, or even some of Synnex's cooperative contracts, that as long as an end user's procurement office allows them to participate and purchase off a co-op, they can use those contract vehicles as well. But ultimately what I'm getting at is that it was a complete expedite of the entire process. All of our agencies out there have their small, medium, and large procurement thresholds. Small, they only need one quote and they can buy. Medium, they've got to collect 3 quotes. Large, they've got to put it out to bid for any number of times, sometimes a number of months. And when Jamie said it really expedites the process and gets product that our end users need today, in their operating environments, maybe even mission critical from a public safety perspective, contracts really help eliminate a lot of that extra process and paperwork. So it's a good way to add a lot of value to clients, but from a procurement officer standpoint, it's a good way to serve your agencies out there in the municipality by doing your homework, seeing what contract items are available, and helping expedite some of these purchases for mission critical technologies.
Absolutely. And to add to that, Reed, great, you got my gears turning there, because there are a lot of state specific contracts, similar to Texas DIR. And I do want to mention the fact that if you guys do you tend to use a state contract, do know that the cooperatives that we hold and manage, such as NCPA and Equalis and Omnia, these guys are all approved as alternative to state contracts. And on our website, that site I showed you, we've got links to the contract pages themselves we can help you dig into state-by-state statutes to confirm the fact that you are able to use these contract vehicles. And in a lot of cases, I will say that sometimes particular agencies within a state may not be aware that they have access to these contracts. So asking the question is completely okay, because a lot of times we'll have an end user approach us and say, hey, I've never heard of NCPA before, but this intrigues me because this contract is flexible. It includes so many different products. Can I leverage this? So we can actually go into the membership listing for every end user that has signed up to use NCPA. And chances are that we will find other agencies within your very county that have used NCPA or Aqualis or any of those other contract vehicles. And that can definitely aid in the conversation for sure. So just know that all of these details we have pre-vetted, and we've made sure that we've done all of that work on the back end to make this as smooth as possible, the transaction for everybody.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to share some anecdotal customer stories where contracts have really come in for the win. Actually, so first we work with the Sheriff's Department local here in East Tennessee, where RCN's headquarters is, and they had old Panasonic rugged computers in their patrol fleet. And they were running on Windows 7, and they were running up against the sunset date for support on Windows 7. Now, that's a security issue. If there's a bug or a crash, you can't fix that. There's no firmware updates for security updates. But even more than that, their computer-aided dispatch software vendors and their record management software vendors were no longer going to support Windows 7 platforms, meaning all of their mission-critical softwares were going to be obsolete on that obsolete unit. They only had a couple months to pull together a purchase for units that came with Windows 10 Pro. And it was looking like they were going to have to put it out to bid at the last minute. And that was significantly going to delay the process up to several months that they didn't have. We introduced them to NCPA as a cooperative contract. They took it to their procurement office. We got them over as much documentation as we could find between NCPA's site and Synnex's site as possible. We even showed them the membership list where some East Tennessee counties and cities had used it. They signed off on it. They signed off on the purchase order requisition, got us the PO, and we were able to get them those units in time ahead of that end of support date. So that's one. There was another school district in California that was unsure of whether they could use a cooperative contract like NCPA when we had positioned it. And it was for about 100 routers to go onto their buses to provide connectivity in their community to their kids on commutes. And we were able to go in to the membership list and find that the county government that school district resided in had used NCPA in the past. We showed them that proof, and then that's all it took for them to feel comfortable with it. You know, I'm sure that the school's procurement official picked up the phone, called the county, they verified, little chat, and then we were off to the races on getting that equipment deployed. No RFP necessary, no multiple quotes necessary. So it really was a way for them to expediently get that equipment. And in the first story, a way to get that equipment when it was absolutely crucial for public safety.
What was the sign-up process like for that end user? Was that easy for them to navigate?
Yes, it was actually quite easy. I believe I set them up with somebody on the GovSolve team specifically that had a part in managing NCPA at the time. And from there, I believe they directed them to NCPA and some of the resources there, and they worked that out together. And I think in about 2 to 3 days, they were signed up and could use that contract vehicle. So it's not a very long turnaround time at all.
No, I think it's, last time I checked, I think it was half a page, if that, on the NCPA website for end user registration. I think it was address and tax ID number, and I think that was it. So yeah, very simple process. We like simple in contracts. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, Mark, in here, building off of Reed and Jamie, is if you are in the audience and you're a procurement officer or you're a department head, and you can go back to your procurement officer and say, hey, listen, have you heard of NCPA? Have you heard of these catalog contracts that we're able to use? Procurement officer, if you're in the audience, we're introducing you to something that you can use, instead of a state contract. Like Reed said, with those two examples, there is countless examples of, even internally within a city where, we were working with a police chief on body worn cameras, and that police chief didn't know it, but as we found out very quickly in a matter of about 10 minutes, they had been buying $1 million worth of merchandise off of NCPA. And the chief was insistent that they needed to use the state contract, but oh wait, hold on, the procurement officer hadn't communicated that over to the police chief, to the department heads, that NCPA was applicable and it could be used. So Reed, your two case examples there are great and fits right along with that. And I just wanted to interject that part, for those in the audience that now you know about it, and lean on RCN to introduce you to some of these contracts for your purchases.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I think that in a way actually kind of brings us to our next question a little bit, mostly Reed's part, but Mike, I'm going to pitch this to you first. As a former end user, how important are contracts versus an RFP? And if you can actually talk about your time as an end user, I think that would give some nice context to it as well.
Yeah. So for those in the audience, I've 30 years in law enforcement, retired police chief, and now I've been in this side of the industry for about 7 years. As a subject matter expert, and I can tell you this from my former end user days. Sure, here I am, as the police chief, responsible for the budget, responsible for the multi-year plan, responsible for the procurements, and as we know in this day and time, I experienced this, and I talked about this in one of our earlier RCN webinars, is the fact that in this day and time, budget, state and local governments are impacted by some budget shortfalls. I experienced the same thing back in 08, 9, and 10 with the Great Recession, where I had to cut my budget. But and what we found was capital expenditures was really put on hold, and that's what we're seeing again today in some states, and breaking it down to some cities and counties around the nation. And so being able to come in and utilize a contract instead of me going through that RFP, because that's another thing I was responsible for, the RFP, being able to put that together. And for all you end users that are in the audience, we all share the same headaches. I've been there and done that before, just like you have. There is a alternate route, is what we're talking about here today. And if there is an alternate route through a contract vehicle that I can utilize, as a police chief, for those in the audience, for a procurement officer, for, any department head of any city, county, state, then I'm going to use it 10 out of 10 times. That alleviates me from having to go through an RFP process, which is a very lengthy process, just like a capital expenditure process is. You're having to go through the steps with mayor and council. You're having to go through, the steps with your procurement officer, and being able to follow all the guidelines relative to an RFP, and a much simpler process, much faster process. Like Reed said a while ago, being able to get the technology you need in the hands of your officers and paramedics and firemen, that might be the difference between them going home at night and not going home at night, but putting that technology in their hands today to where they're able to integrate that technology, use that technology today, instead of waiting months down the road through an RFP process.
Absolutely. Reed, I'm going to pitch the same question to you, although instead of as a former end user, just as someone who works with a multitude of public sector end users, what do you see from that? I assume you had those You had those great examples earlier. I assume you might have a couple more.
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually working a couple contract deals right now. There's one specifically tied to the Emergency Connectivity Fund for schools to get connectivity on their school buses. There's language in that act that allots for school bus connectivity, school bus routers, but still beholden to their local procurement process as well. So this particular school district is trying to get 50 routers on their buses and also installation services. And we were able to actually position Synnex's GSA contract on a cooperative level for that local government agency. So I know it was the only federally approved one, but also if you dive into the language of GSA schedules, you can find that they can actually use cooperatively at the state and local level. So that was a good example. I think I've already given up my two best examples. Yeah, and I think the important thing to underline here, again, and we'll just keep beating this over the head and driving this home, is that for our customers that were either in a bind at the end of the year and needed to spend money before they lost that money to the next fiscal year, they needed to circumvent the 3-week, 4-week, 5-week, 6-week bid process or quote collection process and get it done. And so whenever something's mission critical, or I mean, it's easy to say if I were a procurement officer, I would want to use a procurement contract 100% of the time because I don't have to put together a RFP packet, or I don't have to call the buyer team and say, hey, guess what? Another RFP. I know I'm your favorite person, but you know what I'm saying? It's just a good, expedient method to get this, to get everything purchased in the hands. So kind of sound like a broken record, but that's really the message. It's pretty simple, but it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to pitch this next question to Jamie. How does being on a contract affect reseller pricing, and how does one get the word out that this is available?
Excellent. Okay, so I get a lot of questions pretty frequently about what the connection is with pricing and contracts. And that's a great question. And I'm happy to say that contracts are going to guarantee that the end user gets a discount, gets fair and reasonable pricing for that particular product. So for the reseller, the VAR, it actually is not going to do a whole lot. It's not going to do a whole lot for RCN's particular pricing. What a contract is going to do is going to guarantee that the end user is receiving pricing that has been cited as fair and reasonable by the government. That is what allows us to bypass that bid process that we keep talking about that's arduous. Like, that's just too much work and it's too long. So we get to bypass all of that because we have that pre-negotiated pricing. And every contract is going to have slightly different tiered pricing. So that's where our contract website will come back into play. That's where RCN will come in as your go-to destination for questions around this procurement process. They'll have all of that information. And it is also on our website too. So, you know, GSA is going to give you a discount off of MSRP that fluctuates quite dramatically. You can get up to a 60% discount through GSA. And then our catalog contracts like NCPA, Equalis, and Omnia, which can be used as alternatives to state contracts, they have a very regimented pricing as well. And again, all of that is detailed on our website. So the long story short is the fact that contracts are going to make sure that the end user is getting a discount. And it's just going to facilitate the reseller in that process.
Awesome. Yeah, great answer. Cool. So I'm going to pitch this next one, to Reed. Are state and local agencies using contracts while making purchases with stimulus funds? So are you seeing a lot of this happening?
Yeah, so I referred to it a little bit earlier, but I have a district in Texas that is seeking to use Emergency Connectivity Fund stimulus funding in conjunction with a purchasing contract, in this case, the GSA schedule on a cooperative purchasing basis, to basically, get what they need and integrate the cellular routers into their buses to offer Wi-Fi to their students. So it's not something that I see a ton out there because everybody has different funding streams. But what I see is typically if it's stimulus related, it's almost treated as a grant. And every time that I've run into grant funded opportunities, they're still beholden to their local procurement process. So for example, if an agency, I think we did business with an agency about 3 years ago for Tough Books, Cradle Points, Brother ruggedized printers for e-citations. They went from LMR radios that they got 20 years ago all the way to mission critical connectivity and MBT, mounting docking gear, e-citation with a rugged printer, really the works, right? And it was all grant based from the state of South Carolina. And we were able to work through a purchasing contract on that, even though they had a grant, because it ended up being about a $300,000 project. And again, they were just able to sole source that from RCN, having constructed that package for them, topping that off with NCPA and then moving forward with that contract. So there was another big one, University of Washington, that bought, I want to say about 500 little routers for out-of-band management for their network racks all across the state of Washington. It was about a $150,000 project. We put NCPA on that, and it circumvented their process of having to go out and collect bids, which they normally would have had to do over sometimes a multi-week, multi-month process. So, but that, I believe, was grant-based as well from the state's OIT office because they had a stake in getting that feature to a lot of school districts and colleges and libraries that UOW managed across the state. So long story short, yes, I have seen grant and stimulus funding used in conjunction with contracts to get the gear that agencies are looking to integrate.
Okay, excellent. Mike, are you seeing a lot of that as well?
Yeah, and I think Reed hit the nail on the head there, you might say, is the fact that they're mostly following their procurement guidelines that they are accustomed to. Although that does vary by state, because really when you start talking about the stimulus funds, they have allowed from the Fed side there, each state and locality really to develop their own guidelines and requirements. So it varies by state, like what Reed was talking about. But across the board, they're really following that normal procurement methods. I think another good point that Reed touched on there was the fact that it's depending on the funds that are being used. The question is wrapped around stimulus funds, but realizing that I might take because I've done this before, I might take a grant and combine it with stimulus funds. I might take my TIF taxes, my tourism taxes that I've got over here, use that with some stimulus funds, in order to have enough funding for the project that I'm trying to integrate into my agency. So I think that's key in remembering that. But no matter what type of fund you are using, the contracts come into play here, in reference to being able to have that. So being able to identify the solution that you have, that you're wanting to integrate, getting the latest and greatest technology that RCN can provide you, being able to come back in and have a contract vehicle for purchase, being able to have the funding stream, whether it's stimulus funds, whether it's some of the other funding streams that RCN can be able to share with you to be able to purchase this technology. It's really put together in a nice little box there with a bow wrapped around it in reference to an easy procurement process and the integration of the technology that is needed in your agency.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. I think we're going to switch gears a little bit here with this next question. Jamie, so talking about reps in general, how would you say that our reps watching today will, my tongue slipped. How do our reps watching today know which contract their end user will want to use? There we go, I got through it.
Gotcha, no problem. So each agency, they are going to have their own set of, I would say, ranked contracts. And each one of those agencies across all states are going to have their, like I said, their own unique set of preferred contract choice. Apart from that, the way to choose the contract vehicle that you would like to use that's offered through RCN Synnex portfolio is basically to look at the solution that you would like to provide and then choose the contract that supports it. That would be my recommendation. Because contracts are all different. You know, we've thrown around NCPA and we've thrown around GSA. So just as a quick comparison between those two, GSA is a contract vehicle where vendors actively have to participate and the product has to go through an extra set of criteria, which means that not everything can be added to GSA because there is a criteria on GSA called TAA compliancy. So everything on the GSA contract has to have been made in a country that signed the Trade, oh gosh, help me, Mike, Trade Act. I forget what that TAA stands for sometimes.
Trade Alliance Agreement, Trade Alliance.
Yeah.
There it is. So basically, we want to make sure that the product that we're building was built by people that received a fair wage, that they worked in a condition that, you know, wasn't hostile. So GSA specifically has that requirement. All product on GSA has to be vetted to be TAA compliant. Well, obviously, that is not going to be every IT solution out there in existence. So when you're trying to choose which contract to choose, trying to figure out which contract to choose, that's why I'm saying you may want to start with what is the product, what's the solution that you are trying to obtain. And then check to see that the contract that you are interested in potentially using supports that vendor and that solution. The advantage of using our NCPA or our cooperative contracts is the fact that it covers the complete umbrella of product that Synnex carries. And because RCN is a value-added reseller of ours and a close partner, they have access to that complete portfolio. And that represents millions upon millions of product and thousands of vendors. So that's a really good place to start with trying to figure out which contract vehicle to choose. Mike or Reed, if you have anything to add to that.
I think you covered it.
Great question.
Absolutely. Cool. So next we have a poll. So what contracts have you used to purchase technology in the past? You guys can just answer in the Q&A section there. Again, this is just, you know, if we get a lot of answers for any one in particular, you know, we might look at doing another webinar, you know, focused solely on that. But what do you guys see? I mean, is it what's the most popular contract that you guys see? It's just a Mark question to you guys.
I think the intention is to put it in the chat, right, Mark?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So okay. Well, that's going on. We'll move on to what's next. So if you want to learn more about GovTech solutions, actually, let's see. I need to share my screen again, don't I? Yeah. If you want to learn more about GovTech solutions, you're already on the great first step, checking out our webinars. We have a lot of different webinars on a lot of different topics. So government technology has been one of the bigger ones the past several weeks. We have all of those past ones on YouTube. And like I mentioned earlier, we have another one on Tuesday, next Tuesday, about education. We also have news and articles that we share on our website and our social media. It's a great place to get information from as well. And then, yeah, like I just said, our social feeds, we try to get little bits of info, you know, every day. We do public sector as well as commercial stuff on there. So lots of great information there. Let's see, how can we help? We're also 5G and LTE enablement specialists. So we specialize in 5G and LTE network solutions that enable our customers to connect better because we provide the right solution every time. And that's not just a slogan. I mean, we'll tell you exactly what you need, even if it's not, advantageous to us. So that's something that we really pride ourselves on. So what can you do? That's going to move us into our Q&A section, which has seen a couple things move through here. And let's see. Okay. Oh, we actually did get some feedback on the most popular ones. So NCPA and GSA is what Jennifer says she uses most often, which I find pretty interesting. So yeah. Okay. So first actual question coming into the Q&A. I've never heard of some of these contracts before. How do I know that I can utilize them? So this sounds like it might be a Jamie question.
Absolutely. So I can tell you, if you are really any U.S.-based agency, you have complete access to NCPA, Omnia, Equalis, and GSA. Absolutely, along with a lot of the other ones as well. Even Texas DAR, it being a state contract, it can be used and leveraged against other states, similar to like our Perryman contract and such. So it's just a matter of doing a little bit of research and having a conversation with RCN, giving Reed a call and having that conversation, because we will do that legwork with you. But all of, like, for example, with NCPA, we can actually go to the NCPA website within our Synnex website, and there's a link there that will take you to the state-by-state statutes listed for your particular state dictating contract use. And it will show you in there where NCPA has been authorized as a valid contract choice. We can also, again, we can look into the previous agencies that have signed up to use the contract to show proof that surrounding county or surrounding agencies within the same county or same state have used the contract before as well. On the GSA side, by merit of you just being either a federal or a SLED-focused agency, you have access to it. There's not even any sign up that you have to do. So it's just a matter of having a little bit of a conversation with us, and we can definitely help you demystify that and confirm and show you the black and white where you do have complete access to all of these contract vehicles.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. This next one is actually pretty interesting. So are these contracts going to get me better pricing? I know we talked about reseller pricing, and a lot of the focus has been on speed over waiting for the RFPs, but how are these on pricing compared to RFPs?
The pricing structure is going to absolutely guarantee you as an end user get discounted pricing. So it is going to make sure that you get the best pricing that's available out there through that contract vehicle, because Synnex has pre-negotiated all of the product on these contract vehicles to make sure that they're compliant within those contracts, what's dictated by the terms of those contracts. And again, one of the biggest criteria is the fact that the pricing is a discount to the end user from market price. So that will guarantee that you get a better price.
Excellent. Cool. Let's see. Third question here. Is there a lot of extra paperwork I have to go through to use these contract vehicles?
Oh, absolutely not. That again, so we've been talking a lot about the normal bid procurement process and how lengthy that is. And along with that, there's a lot of paperwork that you've got to keep track of. With contracts, you're not going to have all of that. It's going to take less than half the time. You're going to have hardly any extra paperwork to go through at all. As far as becoming authorized to use the contract on the end user side, even there's not a lot of additional paperwork that you have to process. For GSA, there is nothing that you have to do to become authorized or signed up with GSA as an end user. With NCPA, Omni, and Equalis, just as an example, you do have to sign up and register with them But that process is very short and very simple. Just requires that you verify your address and your tax ID, because they want to make sure that you are actually who you say you are. And after that, that's it. There's nothing else that you have to do to become authorized to leverage these contracts.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then let's see. Last question that we have in, and I think we already addressed this, but we'll go over it one more time. How do I know which contract vehicle to use?
Right. So, like I mentioned before, I do think starting with solution choice is going to be a good way to help narrow down the contract vehicle, because like I mentioned before, not all solutions are supported by all contracts. So if we start with what the solution is that we're trying to get, we can narrow down the contract choice from there. Because pretty much all contracts are available to you as far as the portfolio that we have, and narrowing it down to figure out which one is going to be the best option for you is going to be a discussion that we have together. But I definitely think starting with what the solution is that you want to target, I think that's a good place to start.